Hi, welcome all. My name is Moritz. I'm co-founder and co-CEO of Tokenforge. We do compliant asset tokenization, and today I'm honored to do the panel for VCs. And for this, I would like to welcome on stage Olaf from CVC Labs, Sagar from Blockchain Founder Capital, Henrik from We3 Fund, and Paul as special and spontaneous guest from Alloy Capital. We will do a short intro and then start into the session. Cool. First of all, I would like to do a small intro round. And Olaf, please feel free to give a short 1-minute pitch of you and CVC Labs.
All right, thank you. Hi, I'm Olaf. I'm one of the co-founders of CVVC. We invest in early-stage startups with a focus on the application layer, and blockchain is part of the tech stack. We've done roughly 60 investments in 20 different countries. Early stage, we run our own accelerator, but we also invest directly in startups. And then we also have a business called CV Labs, where we have co-working spaces, run our own events. The accelerator do research. We're based out of Zug in Switzerland. And have labs in Berlin, in Lisbon, and in Cape Town. And in my prior life, I was a banker.
Sagar, partner at Blockchain Founders Capital. We started last year. It's a new fund, 50 million euro. We do pretty much same like what CVVC does. We also did a couple of deals together. So we invest in early stage startups, basically like pre-product market fit or like pre-revenue business cases which are using blockchain tech as an underlying technology. And we mostly invest in equity deals. We don't speculate with the token models, where we believe like blockchain can solve the many problems which cannot be solved before the blockchain as a tech. So we pretty much keep the simple as an investment thesis, where we want to invest in the startup which you are using like a blockchain to solve some real life problems like use case based startups. And we invest up to €500,000. Before starting into venture capital, I'm like an engineer and also failed founder. So yeah, that's pretty much from my side.
Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. Hi, I'm Henrik. I'm one of the co-founders of W3 Fund, and our fund has like a very similar background. It's quite funny. We invest in the application layer of Web3 as well. So everything you said it already, which solves real-world problems, because we think this is like the next logical iteration after all the infrastructure that has been built. And on top of that, we're also running an event business. We're doing a lot of community work in Berlin. We're about to open the W3 Hub, which is our physical event and community space, and also running a conference which will take place in September in Cologne. So we're also seeing us as an ecosystem player and VC.
Hey, I'm Paul. I was asked to be on this panel 2 minutes ago, and so please bear with me here. I founded Alloy Capital, which is a company that allows professional investors to basically run their digital assets strategy, specifically in DeFi, plugging into regulated custody, managing a portfolio, managing risk. My background really is from the investing side, more on the liquid token side of things. And that's also how Alloy actually started, is kind of us building infrastructure for ourselves. And so I do have a pretty good grasp on like the liquid token side and the crypto as well.
Thank you very much. First of all, Sagar, I would like to know a bit better from you on which hypothesis you are investing at the moment. What are you looking onto, and why you're deciding on which basis for current investments?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, like we invest in early stage startups which heavily focus on like where you need like a front end where people can use it without getting knowledge of like a blockchain as a tech, you know, because if you look at the back in days, like people were selling internet, and nowadays they are not selling as an internet, they sell as an application. So we pretty much keep it simple when it comes to the investment, where you are solving the real life problem, where you might not, or you don't need to understand how the blockchain works in the front end side. So you focus on the more retail side, where you're solving the real life problems by using the blockchain tech. And where we see like mostly like at the moment in this year, was like we are heavily looking into the gaming as an industry, where I think the blockchain can be used a lot, where there's also some different market sectors where you can use the blockchain, but there might be, it takes some time to develop the use case and like a product market fit. You can see like a blockchain has a like clear market, product market fit in terms of like a gaming industry. On top of that, you can look at the content creator side, like a creator's economy. And we are also heavily looking into the content creator for the in-game, like gaming side. So where there are like lots of, you can modify or tune the games, and then gamers can use that as in like to go to the next level into the game. So this kind of business use cases we are looking into at the moment. But where we see like most of the time, like in blockchain space, you see that the product market fit isn't the biggest issue, because blockchain is a great, amazing technology, but as long as there is no demand, I think everything is useless. So sometimes you have the great tech, but if people don't want it, then I think it's useless, because it should have the product demand, like sort of like a people should want it. It doesn't matter like your product is really good, but if people don't want to use it, then it's useless. So we keep it simple that we want to focus on the use cases might getting built in the upcoming days or upcoming years. But as an investor, I think you can be the visionary, but you cannot predict the future. Because sometimes like you can say like, okay, this particular thing should be done. I think that's a wrong approach as an investor, because you don't know. You have to act based on what market want. So if the market want to go into gaming side, you should focus on that side. If market want to go into the creator economic side, then you should go on that side. So we keep it very simple. We stay on the sideline. We watch it, what's happening in the market, and based on that situation, we like to back the founders and we invest into the startups. Yeah.
Thank you very much. How about you, Olaf? Like, what have changed in the last years? You're longer in the crypto scene. You're investing longer. You've seen quite a lot in the last years. So, what has changed in the last year, especially regarding venture capital for you?
So we started investing in 2019, so not that long ago. I think what has changed is the founders have matured. So you get a better mix of founders from different walks of life. Whereas early, it was obviously very tech-heavy, which is not good or bad. I'm just portraying it, right? Very tech-heavy and relatively young. Today, you have a mix of that, but then also maybe more experienced founders or people from industry that has discovered that technology and are thinking of use cases on how to apply it in their particular segment. So you get a more balanced mix of founders on the kind of qualitative side, if you will. And then obviously in the last 12 months, what has changed is I would say back to a more regular pricing environment for risk capital, whereas the last up until I would say a year ago, in particular, you add Web3 and you do a token, and all of a sudden, valuations are triple a regular startup. And from our perspective, well, whether you're building on software as a service or AI or blockchain, it's all about, as you said, Sagar, it's all about the use case and the market potential, and not so much the underlying tech and why should be something worth 3x, right? So prices have kind of come to a more normalized environment, and then obviously also overall markets have normalized more. That's, I would say, the two things.
Thank you very much. How about you, Paul? You experienced it from the other side. You are very
We are now
deep.
worth 1/3 than we were a year ago. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, great.
But like from your perspective, what has changed, or what you've seen in the last year, especially from the perspectives you're having on institutional money, asset management, as far as you can share?
I think it's changed a bit, and it's definitely improved from like 6 months ago. I feel like the FTX fiasco was definitely the low for like especially like non-crypto native money to be interested in Web3 and in the space in general. Since then, it's improved a whole bunch, especially on the very large institutional side of things. I think like in VC, and this is my very subjective view on it, but it still feels like the very good things are still very expensive, and they probably also should be. There's just less trash being funded. Well, like you could build a website and have like a semi good idea and raise a bunch of money for it. I think those times are over specifically, and there's still premium for things that will launch a token just because you get liquidity so quickly. And it probably should have a premium because it's just very attractive to have a 1-2 year cliff and just sell all of your tokens as soon as it hits liquid markets. But overall, I think it's getting healthier and it's kind of starting to catch up with just market momentum as well.
Thank you. Henrik, you are focusing a lot on community, as far as I understood. How important for your VC hypothesis it is that a startup or a grown-up is having such a community, or how can you interact with those communities?
Yeah, for us especially, that's a very big and important cornerstone of what we're doing, because we quite early saw that the intersection between being in touch with the whole community, like bringing them to our events, getting in touch to a wide range of people and companies is super important. Also afterwards for the leverage of our own portfolio companies. So with our focus being in between Web 0, Web 2, however you want to call it, and Web 3, it's definitely a thing that the brands are coming. They're still working on the Web 3 strategies, and we can, over our brand, give also the startups from our portfolio, but also the startups from our community access to these, to their potential customers. And that relates back to what you guys already said. We need to build like products which solve problems in these markets, and you need to have these kind of connection also from our scene into the old money world or in the old economy world, and yeah, just try to make it happen and leverage the context we make in our ecosystem.
Thank you very much. Probably like a short and fast round. Do you invest in security token, utility token, and what are the metrics? Because I think if I look into the room, there are some startups which are probably interesting. How and what they need to bring for you to be interesting.
So we're focused on equity in startups.
Okay. How about you?
Yeah, so we started in 2019 as in BlockRocket. So it was an angel syndicate, and last year we started Blockchain Founders Capital. So we didn't touch a single startup. We have the like sort of token model, so like pure equity deals, no token.
Okay.
We can do both. We're mostly focusing on equity right now just because it has gotten super hard to offer a token. But generally, we can do both, and we're also interested in both.
I can answer this too. I've done some things on the equity side, but I like tokens more because you just get to liquidity sooner and you can don't have to wait for 7 years. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there interesting trends you see, Olaf, in the current VC landscape, which you're looking especially to? Is it like real-world asset? Is it DeFi? Is it stable coins? What are the topics you're most interested in?
All right, so I think a couple of things on digital assets, DeFi, and the fourth. A lot of people obviously are quite careful given uncertain US regulatory environment, right? But I still think it's a massive topic. Personally, I think the jury is still out whether on the DeFi versus CeFi debate how mainstream DeFi will be. So we're treating a little careful there. A big one that we see is the obvious low code, no code. So we're quite engaged in that. And then, obviously the mega trend of kind of, AI and smart contracts and blockchain and how that interlinks is a big topic. In my mind, on the metaverse side, we still see a lot of projects, creator economy, and so on and so forth. We're also there a little careful. We see a lot of interesting use cases, some maybe in spaces that you don't intuitively think of as a young audience. So long term, I think it's a fantastic opportunity, for example, for an aging population. But people don't really think about that yet. So those, I think, are some of the themes. And then for us, a big one is emerging markets with particular focus on Africa.
How about you, Sagar?
So basically, we don't chase after the hype, like sort of like, 6 months back, everyone was wanting to do like metaverse, and now no one talks about it, right? So we try to keep it ourselves a little bit away. Like we don't try to chase the like NFT, metaverse, and so-called like DeFi hype. I mean, everything is good. I'm not saying anything is wrong or bad, but like what we want to do is like we want to back the founders who are crazy. And if you look at the early stage startups, we fall into like pre-seed and seed stage startups where we do our most of the investment. And this stage startups has nothing to do with macroeconomic point of view, because there's innovation, you cannot stop it. So there's always some crazy guys coming from industry or building something from their garage or from their apartments, something they are working on innovative ideas. And you don't need pretty much too much capital to deploy. So we pretty much look into this kind of ideas where you anyway not going to make any business in next 2 years, and you don't need like a heavy growth capital. So if you look at the macroeconomic side, then growth stage startups need like a heavy check size, you know. And we invest in early stage with the 200 to 300,000 euro. So basically, those startup founders who are like solving into creator economy or like a gaming side, or let's say like tokenization, where I'm not saying the real assets tokenization, but like tokenization in terms of like creator economy could be like a next $1 trillion economy. Because think about like any guess, like if you are a music artist and you are putting your music album on Spotify, every 1 million stream, how much money can you make? Can anyone guess? Just a number? It's like $4,000. So every million stream you get on Spotify, you make only like a $4,000. If you're living in Berlin, Munich, or somewhere in Europe, it's not enough, because you get 4,000, and again to top up like for 1 million streaming, you make another 4,000. So this kind of like creator economy where you are like a early days of music artist, where you can tokenize your music album as in like a fraction of partnership, where your fans can buy that token like as a tokenization angle of that music album or music particular song, then they can become part of your journey. Like think about like early days of any musician like Justin Bieber or 50 Cent, where you invested in their first album like as in 5% or 10% as in part of tokenomics, like a tokenization, right? And after 10 years you meet them, then you can always say like, guys, I backed you in very early days, and I own your like 5% of your first song when you released 10 years back. This thing is not possible in the Web 2 side. If you look at the Spotify and you are the artist, you go to Spotify's, they might say like, look, you are a good artist, but I'm not gonna give you the data, like who are your audience. But that is only possible with the blockchain. So there are some crazy ideas we always look and assess while we're sitting on the sideline, as like one of the example I give. So there's always something where crazy people are building, where I think it's better not to chase the hype and just be the realistic, like what is need to be done and where the people are moving into that space. And the second example I would give very shorter was like, think about it, like tomorrow, like a biggest gaming publishers, they just want to start offering tokenized or in-game asset tokenization to the mass audience. They need infrastructure, right? They cannot build that tech into like within overnight or within 6 months. So we invested in Vanly, called like a Belgium-based startup. They provide the gaming infrastructure, they provide to the big gaming company. Let's say like you have the 10 million users and you want to tomorrow give like wallet address to each of your users. You cannot do it by yourself. For that, you need like a Vanly kind of startups who solve the infrastructure problems. So this kind of startup, we do it, and yeah, that's pretty much says.
Cool. Henrik, is it like DeFi or creator economy? What kind of topics you are most interested in at the moment?
Yeah, so I think a lot has been said already, but the two things that we're closely looking at is on one side the whole climate topic, because the Fortune 500 companies, they all committed to the sustainability goals, and roughly 20% of the emissions they produce are unavoidable. So they at some point have to go to this voluntary carbon market, which is like a market where no infrastructure at all has been really built. And we see that as a big opportunity and a super nice use case for the blockchain to go in there, because right now the projects which produce the certificates are just producing PDFs which got sent all over the world, and no one can trace it. And this is like the beauty of the blockchain. This is the bull case to use blockchain for that. And we see a lot of interesting stuff there again coming up after the refi hype, where a lot of startups jumped ship on this trend and didn't really manage to build solid infrastructure. But we see more and more happening in the space, even if it's a bet also on the market getting much bigger as it is before, especially when you look at a market with a TAM of 2 billion right now, which is too small for building unicorns, but there is change going on, and this is what we're closely looking at. And the other thing is the metaverse topic, but not really from the point of, hey, we're investing in Sandbox and we need another like digital world where people are in, but more like where is the intersection of, for example, gaming and entertainment in the metaverse. So we quite recently did a deal, so I can't disclose the name yet, but they are doing digital stadiums where esports can happen. So I, as a spectator, are sitting in the stadium and watching from above how the gamers are actually interacting in the game. So it gives a totally new perspective on the game. And we also see this as a metaverse. And where people can digitally connect. At the same time, Nike is doing a lot of stuff, which is for us as a benchmark of what will happen in digital fashion and how you really can tie these kind of digital assets to your customer, which is a super huge market. And I think this is the two topics which we're mostly looking at right now, which I find super interesting. And you?
Like from the other side, Paul, what's, if you can share it so far, but what was the most interesting in your investment journey for getting invested?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it's really about kind of having a coherent, like it's been said already, like you need to show that you're actually solving an issue that exists. And I think to solve an issue that exists, you first of all have to show that there is an issue, which I think in many use cases of token-based and just crypto-based in general projects just isn't the case. Well, like there's a whole bunch of companies solving non-existent issues. And so I think step one should be there is an issue and we can make that better. And whether that issue is efficiency is bad, it's expensive, it's not possible, people want to enjoy digital experiences in a digital stadium and we want to enable them to do that. I get that thesis and I see so many things where you're solving something that literally 0 people have asked for and like it's not like nobody wins here even if you succeed in building that. And I think that's that's a bad sign if you build a company that solves non-existent issues.
Thank you. Are, Olaf, there any startups or like current ventures you're looking into or have invested in which you can share or want to share, and why you're interested in those?
There's actually a couple in the room, so I can mention them. So one is from South Africa, Web3 Sanctuary. Where are you? Back there. So that's South African based, and they're doing education for coders on the continent, which is obviously a massive opportunity. And then also at the back end of that, a job platform where the coders and people in need of coders meet. And we obviously love that for the continent, as well as, you know, as a global thing. So not a traditional startup in the sense, but something we also took a strategic stake in. And then Mirko, are you in the room from Asven? All right, here we go. So that's a startup out of Stuttgart, software security, software uploads on IoT devices, and the whole security chain and the tracking and making sure that software uploads and compliance and controls being properly monitored. So those are 2 examples of portfolios in the room. There's some others here, but I don't see them. So those are just 2 examples from very different industries and worlds. We've just concluded the 5th batch of our accelerator with 9 startups, and the themes there we saw, I would say, are this whole low-code, no-code that I mentioned earlier. There's a lot of projects, and we like those as well. We invested in a startup called Zero Code, and then also creator economy and how can you get royalty out of games, also in a low-code, no-code environment, a project called Fungies. So they, for example, came out of a recent accelerator program.
How about you, Henrik? Is there some startups you can share, or you're looking into what you're allowed to share?
Yeah, I already told you about one. Another one I would mention that also refers back to what I said is Zenken. They are building a carbon marketplace with especially the things that I was saying. So doing it all on blockchain, offering the carbon assets. Also very interesting from the perspective of how much Web3 needs to be in my product and how much I can also use under the hood, because they are doing heavily B2B sales now. They want to sell their assets to big clients and try to avoid the term Web3 a little bit, just to not confuse them anymore. And I think this is worth sharing. Other than that, Ethermail, this is a tool for on-chain messaging. They got a lot of traction with what they're doing. I could go through all, but I think these are 3 examples from quite 3 clusters which we're investing in.
Okay. Paul, a different question for you, but
I can answer the same one. It's all
Yeah,
good.
okay.
I can tell you what I'm excited about.
Okay.
I think for me, and I think you have to be realistic and kind of where you have an edge when you invest. And for me, I feel like I understand 1% of the world better than most people, which is specifically DeFi. There's a whole bunch of very interesting things. I'm a big fan of Gearbox, for example, composable leverage over multi-protocol strategies where you can use LP positions from one protocol as collateral in different protocols and basically lever up like that, which is very cool. I think Blur is very cool on the NFT side of things and kind of innovating on liquidity and basically treating NFTs like regular tokens and then making it kind of more trading focused. I think makes a lot of sense. And then I think also kind of on the DEX side of things, there's a whole bunch of very interesting things. I'm still waiting for someone to build a reasonable and working kind of KYC gated DEX experience, which Uni v4 might solve-ish, but probably not. And I think that there's a few cool candidates kind of working on that, and I think one of them is gonna be a big winner.
Thank you. And Sagar, you shared already one startup you're looking into or invested in already? Or are there others you want to share?
Ashwin is also one of our angel portfolio. By the way, any founder from south of Germany, Mirko is like a grant god. So I think he got a couple of €1 million worth of grant from the Baden-Württemberg government. So please reach out to him if you need more alpha on how to get grants. And the music startup I mentioned earlier called Beats, they are based in Munich and Berlin. And these guys were working, they basically built the Amazon Music Dark from scratch. These 2 founders really resilient, and they built these Beats, and we funded in the last round. And they are basically solving this IP right issue by using the NFT and the tokenization part, which I mentioned earlier. And the second startup we funded recently is based in Vienna. And these guys basically, if you are a YouTube artist or a content creator, you can tokenize your video. They are focusing on the viewership of up to 100,000 if you're onward 100,000 onward viewership on YouTube videos. So basically your viewers can buy a fraction of your video as a fraction of ownership, and whatever revenue you make in the next 5, 10 years or 20 years, as long as the show goes on, you can get that kind of a royalty. So basically, there are some use cases where tokenization makes part. I think you are also running your own venture on tokenization, where some of the industry where tokenization makes a lots of sense, where on the other side, tokenization is only end up having a sort of speculation. And that's why that's a pain in our industry, that majority of the people, when you interact with them and you'd say you work in blockchain, they just want to close the window or just close the conversation, because the majority of the people think it's we are just bunch of geeks who are just going onto DeFi protocols and trading shitcoins and making some money, and getting rich quick. So these are the 2 sides of economics.
So we are in the last minutes. Last question. Web3 VC for the upcoming next year, next 2 years. Henrik, what are you seeing and what are you wishing, probably from startups or the ecosystem, to grow?
I wish for everyone that the times are changing again a little bit. From a realistic perspective, we already discussed about it before the panel, how the market looks like right now. And I feel like that it's getting worse a little bit. So it's already very hard for both sides, not only for the startups to raise capital, but also like from our VC fund to actually make funding rounds happen and like convince enough investors being on board to make a financing round. And at the moment, I have a little bit the feeling that there are still a lot of startups outside which at some point will need money. And I see that coming in the next 2 quarters. And I hope for all of us that we navigate through it. But I think, yeah, there are some hard times coming still. But then at some point, I mean, we have some good news in Web3 now with all the institutional players coming in. So maybe there will also be a little bit more of an upswing on that side. But still, yeah, I think it will still take a little bit of time to really recover, even if the prices seem to be kind of natural right now. But yeah.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, Olaf?
So for our industry, I would say to have an open-mindedness and a willingness to take everyone along. Because sometimes when you're in tech, you become almost too techy and you need to bring people along, otherwise innovation is not happening. So we try and do that by, when we speak to investors, focus on the use cases of it rather than trying to explain the tech. Mm-hmm. For investors, obviously, to be open-minded and being aware that this and a few other technologies, we're on the verge of a next phase of tech revolution. One of the things we say, well, if you think, innovation has never been as fast as today, that's true, but it'll never be as slow ever again. So, you better make sure that you kind of come up for the ride, otherwise you may get left behind. And I think that mindset more on the investor and corporate and finance side to be more present.
Thank you. In respect of the time, do we have 1 minute for 2 last answers, or? It's okay? Okay, then Sagar, please.
Yeah, I think the macro situation is very bad, and the liquidity is almost like scarce. So, I mean, things can go more worse, and we might have to go sideways. But I think as long as in the venture capital business, I think it's a long-term game. And if you are in for like 2 to 3 years and like looking for some good days to come, I think that's not going to happen. But I think if you look at the long-term perspective, as Olaf mentioned, like technological innovation and bringing everyone together and building the product which people want to use it takes lots of time. And also, I think on the other side, if you look at the most of the good startup, they always came as like when the situation was really bad. So basically, if you look at the good founder, like in our industry, like Coinbase wasn't invented in 17, 18. It's like working since 14, 15. It takes like almost 10 years to build the unicorn. So this kind of bumpy roads, yes, you have to be ready, prepare for it. Times get harder, but like look at the diamond. You want to polish the diamond has to go through like one of the highest temperature. So you can find also some of the best founders here. They will definitely go through it, and there will be always a light out of tunnel. So
do you have anything to
stay
add
positive
to the diamond as closing?
Let's hope we are one of the diamonds that actually makes it out of the heat process. No, I fully agree. I think, I mean, it's always been cyclical. It will always stay cyclical. And so I think you always see these cycles of like, things get really dumb, and then like a whole bunch of people who shouldn't get money get a bunch of money, and then they spend that money and go out of business, and then like a new crop of companies comes around and actually builds useful and good things. So I actually think that the kind of 2023, 2024 vintages of good funds, specifically in crypto, have a very, very good shot at doing pretty well. I mean, valuations are reasonable. It's less about access and more about actually selecting the good stuff. And so I'm doing your job for you this year. I don't know if you're raising, but like, no, I think it's going to get better. When, I don't know, but yeah, it's always been like this, and it will stay like that.
So thank you very much. We are closing the panel, and looking for the next diamonds. Have a good day.